Welcome, Facebook friends and family. We're in part 5 of the 10 Commandments, and this is our last session on the 10 Commandments. We are picking up with Commandment 7 in Exodus 20, verse 14.
It reads, "You shall not commit adultery." In Hebrew, adultery literally means breaking wedlock, and it means exactly the same in English. A married person having sex with someone other than their spouse. Sex when you're not married is fornication, and God sets rules against that elsewhere in the Bible. This commandment is talking about protecting marriage.
God getting all up in our business? Well, He's got the right. God created sex and marriage and family and us, and He made it good, protecting His good creation. Adultery is destructive to the core.
Jesus also extends adultery to a matter of the heart in Matthew chapter 5, verse 28. To lust is to commit adultery in the heart, and the heart matters. Jesus is concerned very much with our hearts.
To clarify a bit, sex drive is not a sin. When Jesus talked about anyone looking at a woman lustfully, the word for lust there is more than arousal. It means desire with intent. It's also translated covet, as in setting your heart on something forbidden, something that isn't yours. It's not a sex drive issue, it's a heart issue. It's not feelings, but what you do with those feelings. Feelings are natural, but what you do begins in your heart.
That's right. Let's move on to commandment number 8 in Exodus chapter 20, verse 15. It simply says, "You shall not steal." If it's not yours, don't take it. Respect of property is just sort of a necessary thing to society. You wouldn't go to your neighbor's house and dig up their flowers and come plant them in your yard, would you? Nor would you want them to do that to you.
Well, Commandment 9 in Exodus 20 verse 16 says, "You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor." In other words, don't lie. The words here specifically refer to telling lies against someone to convict them in court or slander them in public or gossip about them in private. No false testimony, please.
Now, we could argue here about whether every lie is a sin. Is acting a lie? I'd say there's a clear difference between imagination and deception. But what if a lie is for safety? For instance, in Joshua chapter 2, Rahab the harlot had hidden the 2 men that Joshua had sent to spy out Jericho and lied to the men who were looking for them. She'd hidden them on her roof, but she told the men looking for them that she didn't know where they were because they had left. A complete lie. I believe cases like this are valid cases because God didn't seem to punish her for it, but in fact preserved her and her family when the city was later attacked. This commandment doesn't address every form of untruth. You know, I'm not sure I would trust the person who takes a stand to defend little white lies. And trust is valuable, just saying.
Well, we've got a little technical difficulty here, so let's see what we can do with it. There we go. This brings us to Commandment 10 in chapter 20, verse 17. Let me see if I can read it. Why don't you read it for us, Jim?
Okay, let me find it. "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor."
This one applies directly to the human heart, and it's not enforceable in human courts. There is no thought police, but God's jurisdiction extends to our minds and our hearts and our desires, and we will be held accountable. The Hebrew word for covet here means just that, desire. And desire itself is not a sin. It's the direction of that desire that makes it wrong.
Right. The first step of sin is setting your desires in the wrong direction. Desiring your neighbor's house becomes envy. Desiring your neighbor's stuff becomes stealing. Desiring your neighbor's spouse becomes adultery. Life is more than stuff. So store up your treasures and redirect your desires heavenward.
Well, that's all the 10 Commandments. We hope you gained some insight from this study of the 10 Commandments, and that you'll join us again next week for our Bible topics discussions. Please remember to leave comments or hit that like button, and maybe share to your page. See you next week. Be blessed.